Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Films and Stuff. I'm Ethan, joined, as always, by most valuable Pete. What's up, MVP?
Not much, buddy. How are you?
I'm good. Today is Saturday. Usually, I say Saturdays mean one thing and one thing only, and that means our stream or skip segment. But today, we're calling it Streamer Skip Plus. New branding, same great flavor. And the reason is we're doing a little bit of a somewhere between our patented ramble and our more, let's say, disciplined streamer skip. But we'll just touch on a bunch of stuff one by one. And let's throw it all against the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah, absolutely.
You had an assignment this week. I did not complete my assignment, so it'll be a modified streamer skip. But I assigned to you on Amazon Prime the Terminal List: Dark Wolf.
That's right. So this is, first of all, it's a prequel series to The Terminal List, which was a show, hilariously enough, you had on Streamer Skip last year. So you see Chris Pratt in it, but it's really stars Taylor Kitsch. I only saw 2 episodes, and that's because that's what is required of us. And spoiler alert, I only watched 2 episodes because I wasn't interested in watching more.
Oh, no.
This is the genre of what I call dadshin, a mix of dad action. So, it's like those kinds of shows that your father would love to watch because it's not the most complicated. It's filled with a lot of action. It's got sexy locations. It's got sexy people. And it's like, gung-ho, macho, hoo-ah kind of.
All sizzle, no steak.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot of schlock. And
Yeah.
I call it dadshin because it's kind of like Jack Reacher. It's kind of like Countdown, where it's a little bit like you're getting a lot of like this satisfaction of seeing whether it's America, whether it's men, whether it's, some kind of primal satisfaction of watching this. It's a very, very generic military action thriller.
When you say daction, it also sounds like it's kind of training wheels for like directors, producers, and like pyrotechnics and stunt coordinators to be like, you're not really ready. You're not really ready for the big time, but let's give you something where you can try to like prove your creds a little bit. Let's see if you can do one.
Yeah. This is kind of like Michael Bay light, if you will.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's going to be some good action sequences. There's going to be some explosives. There's going to be some kind of element of suspense or like thriller.
That's right.
But it's not particularly good at any one thing.
Yeah.
It's mindless action with a very thin, paper thin plot stretched across a few episodes. It's not sophisticated. That they're going to be assigned on a mission. The mission is going to go bad. That they're going to have to fight themselves out of a really tough spot or think themselves out of a really tough spot. And at the very last second, somehow they're going to pull through.
Yeah,
so
you know where it's going to end.
The super thin plot is that these 2 guys from a military action sequence or unit get discharged. On their way back from the Middle East to America, they're diverted to Europe, where they're diverted because the CIA wants to recruit them for a spy mission. That spy mission goes wrong, but they said that, listen, if you pull this out for us, we'll make sure you get reinstated back into your military unit. That kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, they're not going to get pulled back into the military unit because they're going to be like, all right, I'll just do this one mission. And then that one mission stretches out over the entire season. And then they're just like, oh, actually, I really like working for the CIA. You can count on me.
Okay. How much is Chris Pratt in this series? Because he was a star of the original one.
Yeah, that's right. So you see him in the first 2 episodes. And then I don't know if you see him, how much more of him you see in the others.
Okay.
So for me, this is a skip. I think there's definitely a crowd out there who would consider this a mood. Fans of Countdown, fans of Lioness, fans of the military version of Suits, if you will. It's kind of like that. It's overly simplistic. It's not bad. In today's day and age, when you can ask for a lot more of your dramas and of your military thrillers, then, like I hold these shows to a much higher standard. It's great for Amazon because, again, this is the kind of show that I'm not subscribing to Amazon for this show, but I'm not unsubscribing of Amazon because of this either. So it's a skip for me, but I think for most it's a mooch.
So that is Terminal List Dark Wolf. Next week, you've assigned me Untamed,
Yep,
starring Eric Bana on Netflix. I have seen it already. First of all, do you like Eric Bana?
I do.
Eric Bana strikes me as one of those very unique actors where he's kind of really well known, but he's always been, I see him as kind of like a working actor. And I don't mean
Okay.
that at all derogatorily, but like he's even been like a star in some places. He's never really had like that Tom Cruise career or role or Brad Pitt like career or role. And I feel like people have been, right? Remember we saw him in like Black Hawk Down, Hulk. He was in Troy across from Brad Pitt. He was in Munich. He was in, oh my gosh, so many other things that I'm probably forgetting now. King Arthur, Legend of the Sword. He's got a starring role in Untamed. And I feel like this role fits him very well. So he plays, I'm going to call him a park ranger
Yeah.
at Yosemite National Park. He's this guy who kind of like is a level above everybody else. He is smarter than everybody else. He knows like the history of the park better. He knows exactly like where things are located, how to get there. He's in tune with kind of like technology and nature at the same time. So he knows like when things are going to flood, when it's going to rain, how to track footprints. I don't want to say a Renaissance man, but he's just kind of like a know-it-all and good at everything kind of guy. But he's very, very difficult to deal with. He's got a really bad attitude, like isn't a good coworker. Everyone kind of like acknowledges that he's like the best ranger and he knows exactly what to do in every situation, but like he's not friendly. Like he never makes chit chat. He's very gruff, abrasive personality, and he plays that role extremely well. So anyway, there is a death apparently doing some mountain climbing, and apparently they fall or their equipment broke. And all the other
Mhm.
park rangers are like, oh man, what a tragedy. The person died while mountain climbing. And Eric Bana, of course, having kind of like this sixth sense or seeing all these other things like, yeah, but look at this thing to the knee and look at this here and look at this residue and the way that this is hanging. And he does like all this like incredible deduction. And everyone begrudgingly kind of comes around and says, yeah, this doesn't seem like an accident. It seems like a murder. So now there's a murder in the national park. They have to investigate. And then it leads down this very long path of, I don't want to say conspiracy-ish stuff, but obviously the lady who died, had a backstory to her, and there's some other people are involved. And it's basically a investigative drama.
Okay.
For me, it's a skip, only because there's just not enough there. And again, the main character, think to a show kind of like House. House pulls off his personality in a little bit of a fun way because he's kind of like sarcastic and he interacts with people enough that it's funny, even though he's a difficult personality, right? Like
Yeah.
you can kind of laugh at how much of a jerk he is. Eric Bana's character is actually such a jerk that there's no real sarcasm and it's not really enjoyable to like watch him or his interactions. We find out that, he had some tragedy in his backstory, and that's why he's very, turned off towards people and isolationist and so forth. But Okay. I mean, people suffer tragedies, but it doesn't really excuse why he's just like almost intentionally awful to folks. The murder mystery itself is pretty standard fare, nothing particularly amazing about it. Some twists and turns, obviously there's a lot of like new characters introduced. If you really love Eric Bana, you'll probably like watching the show. In terms of kind of like the mystery, it's not so great, but it does provide something that's a little bit unique, which is if you're tired of kind of like the CSI and all the other like, Chicago Fire or the other like shows that take place in a metropolitan area,
Right.
and you're looking for something that's kind of like a little bit more green and trees and nature and footprints and rivers and stuff like that, this will be a show that you enjoy more because, to be honest, the topography or the vegetation is a pleasant distraction from what you usually see in like alleyways and dumpsters and like gritty dark basements.
Right.
There's more horse riding, there's more ATVs on trails, there's more campsites and stuff like that. So, and that way it's nice if you're like, oh, I really like, like crime dramas, but I'm so tired of New York City. I'm so tired of Chicago. I'm so tired of whatever. This would be a good alternative for you. Very well done show. Bonnie gives a great performance, by the way. I'm sure he's a super nice gentleman in real life. Acting wise, he comes off as a total jerk. But apart from that, there's not really a lot to the show. So I personally give it a skip. I could see someone saying that it's a mooch. I don't think there's a large percentage of the population that would say that this is a must subscribe to Netflix only to watch this. I would say there's like a high quality formula here. I
Right.
would not be surprised if this kind of becomes an ongoing series. I don't think it's terribly costly to make. Again, everything was kind of filmed outside. There's not a lot of explosions. There's not a lot of pyrotechnics. There's not a lot of stuff going on. So I think that, if it's relatively well received, I wouldn't see why Netflix wouldn't make kind of like a second or a third series. And this has become like, Bana's character, similar to House or someone else that, people are become associated with, and he does it for a couple seasons. I'm sure they can do another plot, set in Yosemite. Doesn't seem so difficult, maybe bring back some of the original characters we've met. But for me personally, this is a skip. That is Untamed on Netflix, starring Eric Bana.
All right. Well, then in that case, I'm going to assign you something different for next
Ooh, all
week.
right. Do it.
I am going to assign you a show called Duster on HBO Max.
Oh, with my man. What's that guy's name?
Josh Holloway, yeah, from Lost. Sawyer.
Even when I saw him in Mission Impossible, remember that Mission Impossible, like
Yeah, he
probably
showed
7 years
randomly.
ago?
That's right. And I am on Amazon next week watching a show called The Red Queen.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know anything about this. I just looked it up. Apparently, it's actually a Spanish show. Perfect. So that's Streamer Skip. Now let's get on to the plus segment, as
Let's
it
do the
were.
plus segment.
So we were talking offline. You and I were meant to watch a new movie this week called One Battle After Another. I was unable to watch it, but you did, and you said you had a spoiler alert for me, which I'm 100% excited.
Yeah, I'm sorry to do this to you, but all I knew about One Battle After Another was it's a new film starring DiCaprio. You and I were both saying, oh, we're so excited for an original intellectual property
Yeah,
film that's not based on superheroes. Because we were saying lately, the only three films like or genres out there was Naked Gun, which was a comedy. There's a lot of horror stuff out there. And then, of course, we've seen Fantastic Four and Superman and everything else, which is more or less, superhero. So there hasn't been like a proper original IP drama. So we're both really excited to see this. Plus DiCaprio, who never, just whatever your feelings are on DiCaprio, he never gives a half-assed performance.
yeah.
He is the opposite of Marky Mark. Yeah, Mark Wahlberg, who I feel like we always get like, well, you paid me to be here. I guess I'll show up. Or Brie Larson. Well, I'm contractually obligated to be here in the flesh, but that doesn't mean that my face has to like express my, happiness with it, right? I feel like I get half-assed performances from those two.
Right.
All right. So I was excited to see this movie. I only caught one very, very brief headline about what is the plot. And if you would have asked me what is a plot before I saw this movie, I would have said the movie is something about he's down on his luck, got to try to get something back, probably money or pay off a debt. And he just goes through kind of like this funny series of, you know, he gets some money back, but then he gets robbed and he gets some money back and then it gets lost. And like just kind of all these kind of like Quentin Tarantino-ish funny events in a very kind of serious way. And the movie is heavily, I don't want to say it's political. There's a lot of messaging in the movie. It revolves around a group of, they would probably call themselves revolutionaries. I mean, this is
Okay.
set in like modern day America. So they see themselves as kind of revolutionaries attacking US border guards on the US Mexican border, trying to break out, immigrants in detention centers, bombing kind of ICE or Homeland Security facilities. Other people would call them domestic terrorists. Let's not get into the labels or the stuff because it's just going to create contempt either way. So he is part of this group, dating one of his cohorts in this. They have a baby together, and the lady gets caught. She turns on everybody, in order to get, some type of reduced sentence or immunity. He subsequently takes his baby and goes like into hiding. And over the course of the next like 18 years, raises his daughter, kind of a loser, like drinks too much, does too many drugs, but very, very protective of his daughter because he believes that there's going to be a time when they're eventually caught. They are eventually caught, and he goes through all these trials and tribulations to free his daughter. I assume that she's been freed. I don't actually know because I walked out of the movie.
Oh my God, you walked out?
Yeah. Why? Put all your politics aside. Everyone is repugnant in this movie. It doesn't matter what your beliefs are, like what side, who's right, who's wrong. Everyone is an awful, awful person and character. There's no redeeming person. Maybe Benicio del Toro's character is the only decent person. Everyone else is just straight up awful. And to be honest, I just don't need that much negativity in my life. There's too many white supremacist racists, people who are bombing things because of their beliefs. Like a McDonald's meal, everyone is just supersized in terms of their awfulness. And I'm sure that this reflects some sliver of reality in the world or in America, but I don't think that it's a comprehensive view. But to be honest, I just don't need that much negativity in my life. And I found that really repugnant. DiCaprio's performance is fantastic. It probably deserves an Academy Award. In terms of being an entertaining thing, it's not at all entertaining. Like, there's just nothing entertaining about sneaking up behind someone with a shotgun and like shooting them in the head. There's nothing entertaining about like some of the scenes, like they're very well filmed, the editing is great, the acting is great, but like it's not a movie where I'm really enjoying what is being seen. Kidnapping a girl is not pleasant for me to watch. Like throwing her on the ground is not pleasant for me to watch. Like the whole thing was just like I said, it was just negative vibes. And probably a third of the way through, I was like, well, I'm really not enjoying this. Halfway through, I'm like, I think I'm going to leave. And then like 2/3 through, I'm like, look, there's nothing else for me to see. I'm kind of assuming that since this is a movie, DiCaprio's going to free his daughter, be reunited, kill everybody, kind of happily ever after kind of thing. I'm not really sure. I absolutely give this a skip. If you really, really, really want to see this movie, I would say wait for streaming. There's no good reason to see it in a cinema. It's not like visually stunning like Oppenheimer. It's not like auditory that you've got to hear it on Dolby. There's nothing really great about it. You can watch on airplane size screen and it'll be totally fine. So
Okay.
in terms of the delta between expectation and what I got, it's a pretty big delta. I thought I was going to get something really good, and I got something really awful. In terms of a cinematic work, I'm sure it's going to get a lot of Academy Award buzz. And to be honest, it deserves it in terms of cinematography, in terms of lighting, in terms of editing, in terms of sound, in terms of acting, deserves it. In terms of a interesting, enjoyable movie, absolutely not.
Okay.
So that's that. Now, Pete, are you going to go see it?
No, based on that review, I will wait for it to come on streaming just so
Yeah.
I can validate your
Yeah.
views.
Yeah. I think I'd like that second opinion, but I feel pretty confident that I'm not going to change. And I think that even the folks that find the DiCaprio character and group to be sympathetic or even in the right, I feel like they still would not really enjoy this movie because again, the storyline is just it's all filled with negativity, right? There's nothing positive about the whole thing.
Right.
It's just negativity. Let's think about what is coming out in cinemas that may be a little bit more positive and uplifting. What does the future look like for us?
Well, I think next weekend you and I are watching Tron Ares. It's the third in the Tron series.
That's right. We've got Smashing Machine.
That's the new The Rock. It's a biopic of some UFC fighter. I mean, supposedly it's done very well. Like critically, it's supposed to be amazing, but it's not particularly of interest to me.
So my question is, I don't want to say we're getting a little bit loose with the biopics, but it's about this guy named Mark Kerr
Yeah.
who's still alive. I mean, to be honest, he's not that much older than me. He's 56. I feel like the threshold for biopics is getting a little bit light here. I've never heard of him before.
Right.
In terms of the boxing fighting world, I mean, there's a handful of people that I've heard of before. Mark Kerr absolutely is not a guy I've heard of before.
Yeah.
All my respect to this gentleman who is very well accomplished professionally. He doesn't sound like a guy that jumps off the page and says, like, well, we should make a movie about him with The Rock.
Yeah.
This was a really good professional athlete who won a lot of amateur and professional titles. He was at one point at the pinnacle of his field, but I didn't feel like he was like this transcendent, legendary guy. Maybe it's because I don't know boxing and mixed martial arts very well, but I just didn't know that the guy deserved his own biopic. Did you?
I agree with you in the sense that I'm sure he's worthy of a biopic. But for me, when I think of a biopic, you want it to kind of be about either someone or something that's more visible, I would say.
Yeah, and I also wanted to like explain someone, like let's take a hot button example. Michael Jackson, right? Everyone knows about Michael Jackson. So if you're going to make a biopic, you don't want to just kind of like summarize his career. You want to like show probably a different angle and explain something, whether it's like the abuse by his father, allegedly, or something else, or something
Yeah,
else. So I feel like if you're going to take one of these like big people, that you should try to show like a different angle or explain something that, people haven't seen previously. But I mean, I will probably go see this only because it's The Rock and there's not a whole lot else out. But I have to say, my expectations are pretty low because, again, I understand the guy was a fighter. At some point, he was kind of, I don't want to say addicted, but he was like a heavy user of opioids, maybe, or like some type of pain medication.
sure.
But I'm not entirely sure, like, what is the thing that he deserved to be,
Like made a
canonized
movie
for?
about.
Yeah. What do we have television wise?
We are watching Gen V, which again, so let's talk about that for a second. I really liked the first season of Gen V. I think in terms of timing, it also came out with the last season of The Boys. It
Yep.
was well timed, and it was an interesting show. I don't know about you, but like I've watched 4 episodes of Gen V season 2 right now, and I am absolutely struggling to continue watching this. Not because I think it's particularly bad, but it's just like I have a hard time remembering who's who, what powers they have, why I should care. I'm not interested in the overall plot, even though there have been some great cameos from the main series. I just couldn't be bothered otherwise.
So your perspective is not invalid. I don't feel the same way. I would say that I'm not fascinated by this show anymore. I think it's a very good spin-off of The Boys. And to be honest, I like Gen V because it's a little bit less profile. The stakes aren't as high. So a lot of the kind of like it gives them more opportunity, I think, for like these micro dramas or other little things. I kind of like all the characters. I kind of like the plot. I'm enjoying it. But I think as I mentioned to you offline, and you rightly pointed out that we should get this on the podcast. I feel like there's a lot of plot recycling in this show.
Right.
And it seems to follow the same pattern, which is there's a new boss in charge. Everyone is very suspicious of the boss. Then they're trying to uncover some type of plot or some type of conspiracy. It gets uncovered. Someone is killed to either keep it a secret or someone is killed. And then that leads to like a new, deeper conspiracy. And it's just kind of like those little Russian dolls where you open one up and then there's another one. You open one up and there's another one. And I feel like it just kind of goes on perpetually. Nothing really new is being introduced. It's just kind of like a recycling of plot. And you're filling in, okay, well, now the new boss is named this. And the people, trying to uncover it are this. And this is what's going to happen. That's going to lead to a confrontation. And then after that confrontation, this will be the new boss. And this is the people trying to uncover it. And it's just kind of like going in circles. I don't really mean that as a criticism. I just mean that that might be a good explanation as to why your attention has wandered a bit
Yeah.
because you're like, well, I've just kind of seen this. Apart from the fact that after 4 seasons of The Boys, 2 seasons of Gen V, both of which have the same type of very, I don't want to say gory, it's more of like a almost voyeuristic kind of like sadistic gore to it,
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
it's almost a little bit like a sexually perverted gore,
Right.
like a lot of body parts and innuendo and stuff like that. That's kind of, I think, reached its peak. It's hard to like shock us anymore. And now it's just kind of like, yeah, I've kind of seen something like that. It's not shocking anymore. It's just kind of like off-putting. Like I
Yeah.
remember the original Boys when the Deep is on the boat and that boat crashes into the
The
whale.
whale.
I thought that was one of the most funny, shocking,
Yeah.
gross, like that to me represented how The Boys was so much different than any other Marvel or DC superhero movie you saw. And that was, I think, a good example. Now it's everyone's kind of like having sex with their superpowers and kind of like dying while they're doing it. And the shock value has just not because of a lack of creativity, but just because we've like seen it on almost every episode. It's kind of like, oh yeah, we got it.
Yeah.
Another.
Exactly.
That's Gen V. What about similar but different Peacemaker?
So Peacemaker, I have made a strategic decision to wait until next week when the final episode drops, and then
Oh,
I'll
really?
binge it. Yeah, I've seen the first 2 episodes. I was having a hard time getting into that as well,
Okay.
but I figured it was because it was the format. I'm gonna give it next week, and then I'll watch all of them.
I've really enjoyed John Cena. It's not new anymore, right? I mean, a little bit of the shock value and, novelty is worn off, but I'm still enjoying it, I have to say. And there's a good spin, I think, on this season that's kept it fresh. What about Mark Ruffalo and Task?
I'm out.
What?
I know, shocking. I'll either wait for the season to kind of go to an end and then watch it all in once. But like, again, I'm not enthralled by it. Not enthralled enough to watch it. So I know you're watching it. Has your opinion strengthened on it or weakened on it? Or are you still at the same level of excitement?
I don't think this is a show that's setting the world on fire, but I think it's a very good drama. And I'm enjoying the different bits. I mean, I think biker gangs are always a little bit intriguing. I think, these FBI-ish task forces are always a little bit intriguing. There's obviously a little bit of backstabbing
Sure.
and traitory, but I have to say I enjoy it. I don't know if this is a must subscribe, but it's in that territory.
Yeah.
Those are the three that I'm kind of bouncing between. Is there anything else that I should be adding to my list that I should be watching right now?
Tulsa King started.
Oh, yeah.
Season 3
Okay.
of Tulsa King started. We're 2 episodes in. The third one comes out this weekend. More of the same. Good, bad, I don't know, but we'll see.
And what else were we watching on Apple TV Plus? You were going to wait for the entire
Foundation.
Oh, yeah. What happened? You didn't.
I haven't started it yet.
All right. I should maybe watch Alien, though.
Oh, you 100% have to watch Alien. The ending was fantastic.
All right. So maybe I have to watch Alien Earth. That's a lot of stuff. So I've got on my list, finish Foundation, start Tulsa King, Gen V, Task, Peacemaker, Duster for Streamer Skip, and Alien Earth, which you had on Streamer Skip and you love. Anything else we need to address in this episode of Streamer Skip Plus?
No, that's it from my side. So we're back next week for a regular Streamer Skip where you're watching Duster. I'm watching The Red Queen. And we should also have a review for Tron Ares for you.
Ooh, and maybe the Smashing Machine.
And maybe the Smashing Machine.
All right. Pete, before we sign off, can you read out our YouTube and other social media threads so that people can like us, ring the bell, and give us some other good feedback?
Leave a comment below, subscribe to our channel, hit that like button, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so you know when the next episode of the Films and Stuff podcast drops for you.
Could not have said it better myself. Folks, really appreciate you staying with us on this extra long, extra special episode of Stream or Skip. Pete, as always, thank you. And we will see you next week, next episode, Films and Stuff podcast.
Thanks, Ethan. Thanks, everyone.
Bye now.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute.